You see, like when life throws you a crisis, like a layoff, a failed venture, or even just that nagging question of, is this really it is? Your values are the compass that can guide you back to clarity. Your purpose is the engine that keeps you moving even when the road feels uncertain. So, hey listeners, welcome back to another powerful episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. And I am your host, Avik. And today we are digging into a topic that sits at the heart of both business and life, the core values and the purpose. Yeah, you heard it correct. And my guest today is Mike Deaton. So, welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks, Avik. I'm happy to be here and excited to share a little bit more about my story.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion today, I'll quickly love to introduce you with Mike. So, Mike knows this firsthand. Like, after a successful career in big tech, he and his wife uh, were laid off on the very same day. Yes. So, rather than scramble back into the corporate life, they use that moment to pause, define their values, and design a new path forward. Yeah. So, that decision led them to launch Flipping Dirt, a coaching program and thriving business that's helped hundreds of entrepreneurs build life changing income and freedom freedom through the vacant land deals. So they have also partnered in over like $90 million worth of commercial syndications, and Mike is now building life like elevated. So his personal brand dedicated to high performance, grit, and purpose. But beyond the numbers and the deals, he is also an inspiring ultra endurance athlete, training for 100-mile mountain races. And because for him, business, health, and purpose are deeply connected. So today we will talk about like how values and purpose can guide your life and the work, and how to build resilience in crisis, and why a healthy mind and the lifestyle are the true foundation of entrepreneurship. So let's get started. Welcome to the show again.
Thanks so much, Avik.
Amazing. Yeah. So Mike, uh as I mentioned, like you and your wife were both laid off from the corporate jobs on the very same day. So if you can take us back, like what was going through your mind in that moment?
Yeah, it was a moment full of anxiety. So I spent my life in corporate jobs and working my way up the career ladder with, as you mentioned, big tech companies. I was with Motorola. I was with Nokia mobile phones. Been to India many times with Nokia in terms of visiting Chennai and Pune and some other places. And I got to travel the world through my corporate career. And I finished my last many years with Microsoft. And I'm in the US. I was living in Texas at the time, and Microsoft is based in a different state. And I somehow knew that if I were to continue in that role, I needed to move to Washington State where corporate headquarters were. And I just really wasn't willing to do that. And so um, it wasn't long before further reductions were happening, and I found myself
Mm.
in the seat of going through a layoff. And then my wife worked for a separate company, also found herself their company was moving, and she got let go. And so, as you mentioned, our immediate response was to go get another job. But the process for me of interviewing and applying for and networking and trying to secure another job, which most likely was going to mean I would have to relocate to another state. I would have to start over. I would have to join a new company culture, which I knew nothing about at the time. And all of those things gave me so much just anxiety. And fortunately, we were in a place where we could take a little bit of a pause and really reflect on, what we wanted out of life. And in that moment, I hired a coach to help guide me through this. And my
Mm.
coach was very values focused. He believed in living and leading life centered on your core values. And so we went through some exercises to identify which values were important to me, to rank those values, to go through and identify anti values. And through that process, it really led us to decide to take a different path and become entrepreneurs. And for us, that was real estate. As you mentioned, we stepped into real estate. We've now done a few other ventures, but that was the moment, and it was just um, you know, listening to our inner voices that were somehow resisting our impulse reaction, which was to just continue doing what we had been doing and try something different.
Amazing. Wow. And I would say like there are a lot of things to learn from this, obviously. And um, so like you have said that you pause to define and rank your values before moving forward. So
Mhm.
how did that uh kind of exercise, I would say, or if that exercise change the direction of your life?
Yeah, it was fundamental and profound to go through this exercise, which was quite simple. I mean, we all there are many, many values that you can lean on, justice, growth, learning, freedom, relationships. There's many, many values out there, and the exercise was for me to go through and brainstorm out those that were important, and then we went through a ranking exercise, and it was through that process that my wife and I understood that, our relationships were one of with each other and with our families was one of our top values. I love, an element of freedom in my life, being able to control my schedule, to control when and where I want to work, on what I want to work. I wanna contribute to this life, and so, those things really helped me overcome some fears that I had to do something entrepreneurial. At that moment, my my worldview, if you will, was a little shattered because for me, for 25 years, I believed that having a salary job and the benefits that come along with it meant safety. Well, that layoff process really broke that mindset and that paradigm for me. And I understood that just because I have a job really doesn't mean I'm any safer than if I were to explore my own business and do my own thing. And so, it was that process that really helped us define what we wanted out of life. Another exercise we did was to write out on a journal, what is our ideal day look like? How would we spend it? What would we work on? Who were we around? And, it wasn't business travel or sitting in a cubicle or on Zoom meetings or things like that. It was, being together, being able to go out in nature, do things like that. And so, it was just that process that really awakened a vision of an alternative future that we could lean into and ultimately pursue.
Exactly. That's so powerful. I mean, because most of us react in crisis, but you responded with clarity, and that the difference between kind of reacting and responding. Wow. So,
It is true, and,
mm,
that didn't happen in an instant.
mm,
It took many days and weeks of pausing, finding help in the form of a guide, and so, one of the things that I really encourage people to do is find time. It doesn't have to be long, it can be minutes,
mm,
but it's great if you can find moments to actually sit down and think, right? Think about your values, think about what you want out of life. We all have more time than we think, especially to do really important things like that rather than watching YouTube or streaming services or scrolling through social media, right? You can all find
mm.
minutes, if not hours, to be able to reflect on what is truly important. And there's really almost no greater investment of your time in acts such as that to help you get that clarity. But it does take some time.
Exactly. So, like the core values sound great on paper, but many people never actually define them. So, what do you think uh, the entrepreneurs and the professionals as well, in general, avoid or overlook this step?
It's a great question. I
Yeah.
think in life, we just
Mhm.
get so caught up in the routine and some of these things are challenging. It's hard to sit down and reflect and think about what is important to me. And I like I said, I hired a coach and had a guide who helped facilitate this process for me, and so that made it a little bit easier. Somebody had a structure and was able to help me think about things. But there's online resources that people can go to, many of them for free. I think if you just search for things like that. But yeah, I think we just get so caught up in the routine and the day to day. And also, as biological beings, we are wired to seek more pleasurable things and avoid painful things. And I think a lot of times we can see um, thoughtful processes like that as just maybe not uh, really comfortable or something that is fun, if you will. I mean, there's definitely other activities. So yeah, I think it just different cultures. But it would be interesting to maybe peek inside different cultures. But at least here in the West, we're just not coached to think about our feelings and think about things like that. It's really a consumer driven society of all of these more what we consider fun pursuits.
Exactly. So, and you have built the successful business like flipping land. So, which is very very practical, I would say. So, uh, the numbers driven industry. So, how do you keep purpose and the values from uh, getting drowned out by profit margins and the growth targets? What do you have to say?
Yeah, it's we are very intentional about it. So as with any large company that you think about, we do the same in our businesses here. We lead with a mission and value statements. And so in our land business, we help people. We buy land from people that need money and are looking for some reason to sell their property. We will buy that property and then we resell it to other people that are looking for their own piece of property or to own something. And one of the ways we do it is we will owner finance properties a lot of times. And so people can, for a very affordable monthly payment, can have ownership in something. It's the same in our coaching business now that we coach other people to be successful in real estate. We lead with the client in mind. And so how can we help them? How can we serve them best? And so it is a very intentional thing to sit down and think about, it's not just the money that you're making, which we all need to live, but it's really about how can you give value back to clients or communities. And, in that process, you will extract more wealth and profit just by the nature of giving value. But it is something that we have to sit down and intentionally design at the start of a business. But then we go through the same process each year or each quarter where we touch base and we see, are we doing what we say we wanted to do, just to make sure we're not veering off course. So, but it is easy to get caught up in the profit margins and working to make more and more.
Exactly. Wow. So like I mean like this might sound contradictory, but actually not. Some people might argue that purpose and the values are uh the soft concepts, that in entrepreneurship what really matters is hustle, metrics, and bottom line. So how do you respond to that perspective?
Well, it is paradoxical in a way. I mean, a business exists, at least for-profit businesses exist to make money. And so if you're in a for-profit business and you're not making money, you will not be in business for very long. And so it is fundamental that you have to make money. However, the way you're going about making money is typically through a product or a service. And those products and services have to deliver some value. And, the purpose and the core values and the mission help crystallize what is that value you're giving. So it actually adds clarity into the business if you know who exactly you want to serve, how do you want to go about serving them, in what ways are you delivering value. And that whole process really gives you a brand identity and helps you develop products and services. And that whole process in and of itself will help you generate more revenue and profit. We get a little bit down into the business lexicon or into the business verbiage, but you know, how much profit you make or not um, comes down to many different factors. How well you can run a business, how um, astute you are in terms of your business. And so it's not definitely a one for one, but it certainly helps provide more leverage. I mean, if you think about two different brands and one of them resonates with you more personally as a consumer, you're going to lean towards that, whether it's
Mm.
Apple or a Microsoft or Nike or something else. Somehow they've touched your value system such that you want to purchase for them. It's the same for small businesses, really, in much the same way. So that's kind of how I see them all working together.
Amazing. Yeah. And have you found that defining values actually improves performance and profitability?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely does. I mean, when you're clear, either personally or professionally, but when you're clear on your values, what it does is it helps you make decisions. It helps you make the decisions that correlate with your values. And so in your personal life, you can be very authentic and you can relate to people from those positions of your values. And you will also feel good about yourself because you're being true to yourself. It's the same in business. When you have an entity and you're serving clients or customers, they feel your authenticity if you are true to what your values are. So it really just comes down to um, being very clear and focused, both
Yeah.
internally, but also as viewed from the outside.
Mm, exactly. Wow. So, and what can everyday business owners learn from endurance athletes above, I mean, about kind of pushing through the limits? What do you say?
Oh yeah. So yeah, this is important. I mean, I love sports. I love sports as a metaphor for business just because there are so many parallels and in sports
Hmm.
they're very easily tangible. Endurance is a bit unique in that um, there's a lot of mindset that comes in longer endurance sports. So you have to really focus on uh, building grit, if you will. You have to, have resilience in staying through. One of the things in ultra endurance sports is very similar to business. If you think about running 100 miles, if you sit here and think about running 100 miles at one time, it becomes almost impossible and you will quickly talk yourself out of it or bring doubts into your mind. And so you have to just break a race down into smaller pieces. I just need to get 1 mile, or I need to get to the next aid station or to a landmark. It's very similar in business, right? You have a large goal that can seem almost impossible to achieve. But if you break that down into smaller and smaller chunks, then it becomes much more achievable and tangible. And so, those kind of things translate, I think, very easily and clearly, and from sport into business.
Understood. Lovely, lovely. Mike, thank you so much for bringing such honesty and depth into this conversation. And I'd say, like, your story is a reminder that crisis can be a doorway. Values are the compass, and purpose is the fuel that keeps us going when everything else feels kind of uncertain. So,
Mm.
um for all the listeners, like maybe you're facing a crossroads right now in business, in your career, or in life. So don't rush past it. So take the time to ask, like, what do I truly value? What purpose is guiding me? The answers may not come overnight, but yes, they are. I mean, they can change everything about how you build, uh, lead, and live. So, Mike, if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the great medium to connect?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. They can find me at Michael B. Deaton. We also have our website, flippingdirt.us, where if you go to flippingdirt.us/freedom, I have several contact points there as a landing page. So you can find my email, phone numbers, and things like that. Those are probably the two best ways.
Lovely. So, the listeners, what I'll do is I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And yes, with this hope, until next time, this is your host, Avik, and this has been Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. So, stay true to your values, stay rooted to your purpose, and keep building the life that you're proud of. So, thank you so much.